So today is going to be an interesting topic. We have been seeing a lot of news over the last, I would say, almost 2 to 3 years now, of rampant layoffs happening across the world, across many industries, whether it's large tech profitable companies or it's the small struggling startups. There are almost no companies left which have not at least thought seriously about the idea of laying off a portion of their workforce. And there are many, many reasons why this is happening, many ways that people are dealing with this kind of an unprecedented job market today. And to discuss that and helping people understand how they should be tackling this kind of a situation, we have two really great speakers with us. We have Richa Sharma and Hullas Arora. They are with me backstage. At least Richa is, I believe Hullas should also be joining us soon. So just in a moment, I will be bringing up Richa here with me onto the stage, and then soon we will have Hullas as well. Hi, Richa. Good morning.
Hey, hi Arjun, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you again for making time for this. Really excited to do this again with you. I think the last one was what, maybe a year, slightly over a year
Yeah,
ago.
it's been a year. Yeah,
Yeah, and I believe even at that time, if I'm not mistaken, there was a lot
we were
of
talking about
talk of
layoffs and
layoffs
everything.
happening, and it's surprising that today we are discussing a similar
Almost
topic.
unfortunate that things have not changed and we are seeing the similar situations at this point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I think while we are waiting for Hulas, what we can do maybe is just start with a quick round of intros at least. And, I can go first, just in case people don't know who I am. I'm the founder of Pivot, which is a career transition support platform. So, what we do is help people navigate any sort of a transition, whether it's just a straightforward job switch, or you're changing some core element of your profile, whether it's your domain, your industry, your level in the organization, sometimes even geography, or you're returning back to the workforce after a gap. So many different types of inflection points that people go through today, and our goal is to help you land up in your target role. That's what we do. We'll talk more about Pivot and a little bit of what we have been doing throughout the course of this conversation. But I think with that, I would turn it over to Richa. And Richa, welcome again. Please go ahead and share a bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Richa, I'm
I
a
think we have
content
Ullas
marketing.
as well.
Hi,
Sorry to cut you off,
Hullas.
Richa, but hi Ullas. I hope you can hear us. We were just getting started
Yeah,
with the
hi.
round of intro.
Hi Arjun. Hi Richa. Good morning. Sorry, there were some tech issues. The laptop I was trying to join from is not allowing me to join because of security issues, but no problem. I've joined from home and very happy to be a part of the conversation.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ullas. And Richa, please go ahead.
Well, I'm Richa, I'm a content marketing professional. At the moment, I'm serving as the head of content at Regenesis. I hold an experience of over 11 years. In the past 6, 7 years, I've worked in different ed techs like Imarticus Learning, Regenesis, Testberg, etc., senior roles. And I am not too proud to say that, but I've witnessed both sides of the layoffs and all at one point of my career, and it's not a good thing. So, and I genuinely understand the importance of this topic, how crucial it is, and how important it is to actually discuss about this entire thing. Arjun, genuinely great efforts that you guys are putting in this.
Thanks, Richa. Thank you. Appreciate that. Um, Ullas, yeah, please go ahead, and if you could just share a bit about your career journey and like how you resonate with this specific topic, that would be great.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you, Arjun, for having me here for this conversation. A little bit about myself. I have always worked in consulting, which is a fun place to be. Large part of my career was with organizations like McKinsey, EY, and we did a lot of work on restructuring. So I think it makes a lot of sense. So, like Richa, I've been on both sides. Um, Born and brought up in Delhi. I am currently leading learning and development and campus for Godrej Properties Limited. I also see how different restructuring, even apart from layoffs, work for people when they move into different roles, different geographies. And while that's also not properly a layoff, but a lot of people struggle with those kind of movements internally. So I think very relevant topic in today's time. During in one of my stints, similar to Richa's, I was on the other side where we had to let go of about 350 odd people, and it was not an easy thing to do, even if we did it with the best of our intentions. Looking forward to some great conversations and questions today.
Amazing. Thanks, Ulas. So, the first thing that I want to talk about, and Ullas, I don't know if you caught this. This was maybe before you joined, but Richa and I were talking about, Richa and I actually did another session like this, maybe slightly over a year ago, and that was a different topic phrasing, but it was in the context of layoffs itself, right? And it's funny, like it's been over a year and we are still talking about layoffs, and this is kind of unprecedented that such a job market with so many uncertainties has lasted so long. There are many people out there who have not been ever part of this kind of a job market. They're like, this is poor performers, or that they are freshers, so they don't really have the experience or the credentials to be successful. It's just that they have everything going for them, except they're just not landing jobs after getting laid off, right? And they also don't have a lot of feedback as to why they're not landing jobs. It's just a little black box out there. So the goal of this session is to kind of remove the opaqueness of this current job market, understand better what's really happening. So first thing that I want to ask from both of you, and maybe we can start with Hullas, you, given that you're directly into this space, why are layoffs still happening? So why are so many companies still laying off? It may not be every company, but there are large profitable companies and there are small struggling startups. Entire spectrum, you see there are still many companies that are laying off. What's happening according to you?
Great question. I think couple of reasons come top of the mind, and this is what we have seen live in action as well. There are two categories if I were to break down, right? One is, like you said, small struggling startups. Now, I would say struggling is a bit exaggerated there. I think there's just a shift from being revenue driven, top line driven to bottom line driven. So I think the age old principle of being bootstrapped and profitable right from day one is coming back in vogue. And now in that journey, a lot of organizations have relied, especially they were externally funded, that it is driven by their hiring or over hiring or unplanned hiring, whatever you call it, was driven largely by the hunger for growth and customer acquisition, which is now suddenly tilted towards profitability. Whether we like it or not, I think one of the biggest things that faces the brunt of it is the people cost, right, or the workforce cost, especially in the non revenue generating functions, or as we call in some bit of technical language, the tooth to tail ratio, right? The tail takes a beating, and hence we see this. The second category, right, where the businesses are profitable and there's still restructuring that happens. Largely, the drivers are the the future, future focus towards further more efficiencies, right? They have already squeezed profitability now. Suddenly, the revenue growth is stagnant for them. Or if you see mature sectors such as FMCG, where the growth rate, because of owing market conditions, is slowing down a bit. I think first thing that then leaders in the organization looks, if they were to maintain the same level of profitability without increasing revenue, is to cut costs. Now, how do I cut costs? Of course, the good organizations start with non-workforce costs or the overheads, but they also come down and see, okay, is my structure efficiently created right now? Am I bloated in certain places? If I were to look at productivity, and that is happening with especially the technology sector, where we see even the big behemoths having great profitability, good numbers if you see their investor reports. But because of technology, when their revenues start to stagnate, they come down to costs, and then they come down to workforce. And it's becoming very acceptable in everyday scenario now, I think, which was not the case years ago, where there was still possibility of focusing on jobs. I would say those two are big categories how people drive.
Got it. I think that's a good way to kind of structure the, reasons for why this is happening. And Richa, I mean, would love to understand from you as well, like, have you been able to, over the last year since we last spoke about this, see any new emerging trends with regard to the job market and why companies are still for such a continued period doing layoffs? Like anything that you have been able to see according in that
I
region?
think until last year or maybe last to last year, it wasn't as normalized. People were still scared, even on the managerial end, on the management end, they were still scared to put up step like this. They would conduct hundreds of meetings to think about it. Now it's normalized like anything. Somehow people feel that it's okay to cut cost on the cost of people. Now it can be anything, and that's just unfortunate in situations like this. Uh, at the same time, they also know that because the situation, the market job trends and whatever has been going on so badly, they know that people will be very much okay working under pressure. So they will be okay to work 2x or 3x. Earlier, they were not as sure that the employees would be more than okay to handle more work. They would not ask for more hiring. They would not ask for more. Now they know that because of what these unfortunate reasons, people
Right.
will think about the job securities and they somehow normalizing this. People are also accepting this. That fine, at least I have a job. That mindset among people has changed. And then I think in last 1 year, what has emerged as the biggest trend is because of the AI. Uh, Great that we have AI in place. Great that I personally feel being from content and marketing and everything, which is a non-revenue generating function. Uh, I think we are helping everybody. We're a wonderful cross-functional unit and everything. It's very easy to target the non the functions which are as a last which are not generating revenue. So when there's AI in place with this kind of combination, they feel it's very easy to replace people with some sort of efficiency, AIs and everything. It was not as normalized last year. In fact, last year they were not really sure if they could use a certain GPT or a certain Claude or something for generating content. This year they're more than sure to do that. And I think that has changed in the last 1 year.
Got it. I think very important points that you have mentioned there, and both kind of allude to this normalization of even well performing, high performing employees not necessarily knowing where their career is going because of either employer driven markets or because of technology that's evolving very rapidly. And there might be certain other trends as well, right? But it's all pointing towards that career trajectories are becoming more uncertain, and they were always becoming more nonlinear. I think that was when we first started Pivot with this deep fundamental conviction in the fact that people are not just going to follow the same career path forever. I think that is still there, but now there is a lot more impact that's happening from the organization side as opposed to just the individual employees making career decisions. So I wanted to understand that part better, which is given that employees are losing, at least momentarily losing control of their future prospects because of an employer driven market, because of AI evolving so quickly, and it's supposed to, I think, even speeden up from what we are seeing with the developments in China, and how that's making the technology so much more cost efficient that almost any country can build their own LLMs at this point. So how do you see employees and professionals kind of either future proofing themselves or being able to prepare themselves for this new kind of continued uncertainty in the market, whether it's from a skills perspective, mindset perspective, something else that you have been seeing which is helping employees take a little more control back into the career? Ullas, we'll start with you.
It actually brings to an interesting word in my mind, Arjun. I think whatever you talked about, this is the era of being a T20 all rounder, right? Fungibility at workplace, both in terms of mindset and skills, is going to drive your journey. A lot of employers look for flexibility, right? Of course, they're willing to coach and invest for potential. But if, for example, you are a coder who knows Java today, right? And I want to move you to another squad, another chapter, whatever you call, then I'm looking, do you have at least basic understanding of foundations of other coding languages so that once you move there, you are able to do that. Similarly, if you're a developer, can you do product design, product management? If I see that I can outsource the entire development
Kind of
piece,
like a jack
but
of
what I
all
do
trades
need is,
concept. Is that what you're kind of getting at?
yeah, yeah. Little bit there. I think there's one thing that we generally talk about at workplace today is skill audits. Audit yourself. What kind of skill sets you have, and what are one or two complementary skill sets you want to build. For example, in HR, if you've always done rewards, uh, are there other skills, like for example, a TA, that you would want to experience or build in? So the world is great for specialists, but have spike in one and maybe have breadth of skills across two or three. And I think that makes a key on how you can navigate the moves along with your employer. Because for sure, when the demands, etc., shift, maybe inside and outside your function, the career pathing, which is non-linear, comes very, very handy. Um, Richa, Arjun, your views on that, because I'm seeing this happen more and more over last 2 3 years, where whenever restructuring happens, and if we want to protect our top performance, I think they still own the market. But whenever we want to protect them, there's always a proposition on the table that this role or this function is going to bear the brunt of it. Are you willing to move to an next place? And unless you have that skill, no matter how great you are, you will always be down on the list.
I can't hear you.
Sorry, can you hear
Arjun,
me
you're
now?
mute.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
think terrific point there, Hullas. I think regardless of your performance, you still may or may not be on the chopping block, so to speak, because of the organization's own evolving priorities of where they want to head, in terms of strategic direction. So that definitely is an interesting concept, but I feel like not everybody is well suited to adapt, especially I don't want to generalize, but the older you are, the harder it is. It's hard to give old leopard new stripes, as they say. So I mean, I know you both are probably still in your 30s, or within, let's say, 10, 15 years of work X. We have at least 30 to 35% of our clientele at Pivot are people with 15 plus years
Hmm.
experience, people in their late 30s, 40s, some even in late 40s, early 50s, right? And I mean, I want to generally deal with the entire broad demographics, including Gen Z and millennials, but there is a big part of like older millennial workforce out there, or maybe even boomers soon to retire. They are also in this job market, very much so, but they are probably facing the most challenging situation right now because they're also vying for some of the most senior leadership roles, right? So how do we, as an employee, whether it's, I mean, see, it might be slightly more easier for a Gen Z starting out their career, but let's say if you're talking about people in the mid 30s to mid 40s, how do they tackle this particular job market? Richa, what do you think about that?
I think as last rightly pointed, you have to be at very best. You have to be at your best no matter what, irrespective of your the market trends and whatnot. If you are there, if you're too good at your job, I think the chances of, I mean, given the situation that your department and your function and your role is important to the company, the chances of you being asked to leave the company would be lesser. At the same time, if you are someone who holds a decade of experience or maybe 5 to 6 years of experience, are very comfortable with where you are and everything, I think with that also comes with certain level of maturity. For example, you might start off as a writer or a basic engineer or developer. If you hold that kind of experience, most probably over the years, unknowingly, you must have added on a lot of skills like team coordination, interpersonal communication skills, public speaking skills for a lot of people when they present things to a lot of people. So they may or may not seem like really hard skills on the table, but then if you have all of that and you become comfortable with that, and you are willing, you identify it and you're willing to present that to the world, I think then you become a combination of everything and you become a very good one. A basic Gen Z, a basic fresher won't be able to tackle all of that. And then again, not something to boast about, but I think millennials or people who have experience can also also understand how exactly to take pressure. without really, impacting everything else, uh, which is not the best thing. But then again, this is also something that's required at some point of time. Gen Zs at this point make that off concept completely. Um, Somebody who is very much like probably best at their job, but does not understand how to, communicate all of that to a certain department or the manager, will still be lagging behind. So when you have that kind of experience and you identify the skills, interpersonal skills that you have evolved over the years, I think present that as a package to your manager, to the management, and I think that should be all. And having said that, irrespective of how much experience you hold or what kind of seniority level you have, it can happen to anybody. So make sure that you upskill yourself, you update yourself at all points of time. That
Yeah.
should be the
Yeah, I think very important point, Richa, that you mentioned there. I completely agree with the fact that you really have to be at the top notch. But the thing is, usually performance is seen in relative terms, right? That's why you're seeing a lot of layoffs also. When they happen, people, they might be doing well generally, but if they're not as good as the best in on the team,
Hmm.
they they're just not considered a great performer, right? Not everybody is in the, I mean, by the definition of it, average performer is, an average performer. So I think what's happening though, in addition to what you're saying, is that the performance standards are being constantly updated and elevated. Simultaneously, I think um, the tools that are out there are also increasing the expectation from employees. Like, what, for example, in content, maybe you were producing 10 blogs in a week earlier. Now you're expected to finalize 50 blogs a week, for example, because people are like, the leaders especially are like, why don't you utilize AI, GPT, and it should be so quick, right? So for people who are kind of not in the top 10, 20, 30%, I think it's going to remain a challenge, right? And I have felt like, especially again, if we talk about the more experienced population, that is slightly more at risk. And there's one concept that I want to talk to you both about. I don't know if you have gone through that yourself or if you've seen others go through it, but a lot of people, especially in their late 30s to, let's say, 40s, 50s, are considering actually doing something on their own, as a part-time opportunity, right? To kind of fill the gap that they might experience because the job market is not very robust. So that is something people are doing, not just because they're, like, looking for income, but they want to actually keep themselves updated with real world skills, right? Not just take courses, but actually apply their skills and renew, and strengthen the ones which are getting rusty by doing actual projects. What do you think about that? I mean, again, I don't know if you both have experience, but Ullas, have you seen people around you who are thinking about careers in a non full time role capacity and having that become a more normalized thing out there for them?
That's a very interesting inflection point, Arjun, because I've seen both sides of the coin, right? I've seen people who continue to grow, want to be in that space, growing linearly, because that comes from that millennial background or even boomer background, right? Especially late 30s, early 40s. And we jokingly say in that workplace that there are only two big crises in the world. One is global warming or the climate crisis, and second is the leadership, right? Which continues to be a crisis today. And I think a lot of organizations, while even restructuring, they do want solid direction going forward. So a lot of these people, right, because they have grown so much and they have attuned, they have, by the nature of growth, but are they really the leaders that the organizations are looking for today? That's a big question. So one is that space itself. And I think secondly is a large population thanks to democratization of work across internet and even giving a lot of acceptability in the society to do something on the side, right? It can be a hustle, it can be a part-time advisory. Lot of changes in that population is now happening, right? While we see at a juncture of 20, 30 year olds, people are like 1 year into the job and then they leave of their own because they are very kicked by the trends that we see through democratization catching up. To quote you an example, one of our leaders, right, is someone who writes or creates programs on HR leadership, for example, for startups, right? In as a part-time option, they're sort of like an advisory member on their board to curate team building programs, leadership programs, and I think they do see it as a segue that once they move out of this role or once they go out, will they have enough real world capability to do that? I think the split between the two personas is still 60-40. Somewhere people are still more traditionally anchored, but that shift is now changing, at least in some capacity. Alternate career paths or additional career paths is what people are taking up, which I think gives them a great sense of purpose. But I think that comes with also if they're financially secure enough to do that and experiment that
Right.
beyond their regular job and hours.
Right. Richa, I mean, similar question, but in a slightly different light to you. I mean, what are some alternate strategies, whether it's, work portfolio, moonlighting, et cetera? Like, what are some of the strategies which are different from just going after another full-time job that people are, experimenting with or applying to navigate this layoff-driven job market, according to you?
I think, as I said earlier, upskilling and upgrading yourself is the way out there. You have to make sure that you're running yourself with the times that we're in. You are constantly evolving with kind of knowledge that's available out there. Um, I know a lot of people who are really experienced, who are pretty good at their jobs, but then are very much okay to experiment with new things and new formats that they have never understood. For example, a basic graphic designer who might be using Corel at one point is now ready to explore Canva because of new AI features. When they hit, which they hated initially, why not? They want to experiment with the latest AI tools and whatnot. People are, I think you have to be at your absolute best with your EQs and IQs kept on place. At the same time, yes, once you do that, obviously keeping financial cushion out there. Once you do that, and once you know that these are the skills that I have and I can work with that, probably start charging for it. Initially, people are ready to do it for free. People would love to, for example, you might be pitching a lot of mentors. They may, be sure to do that, but then I'm sure a lot of people would actually uh, fill in the space only to try this out, so that at maybe after 5 years down the line, they see themselves doing this as of I don't know, part-time thing, an actual thing, or maybe just safe sites. They can do that. A lot of people who are experienced can go for it. Um, at the same time, I feel it's happening the other way out as well. After a point of time in their career of 10 years or 15 years or something, people are also open now to pursue their hobbies as a full-time thing, and this is pretty great. As I think this is the only good thing that I've seen as a trend out of this entire thing. People are now ready to pursue their passions as a full-time career or as a part-time career. They are upgrading themselves both professionally and personally. Just not the passions, but just not the hobbies or passions as they call it, but also what is required at the workplace. Um,
Mhm.
this all based on to eventually looking out for more networks. Experienced people already have a cushion of networks with them. So when all of that combined, I think it leads to a great combination of everything, if that makes sense.
Hmm. No, I think it does make sense. So, just switching gears a little bit here, before we dive into the next topic, I just wanted to let anybody who's joined us today, firstly, thank you for joining us. And please do feel free to share your questions in the chat here. We will be taking them up soon with Hullas and Richa. And this is probably one of the best avenues to get any individual specific query that you have with regard to your career, with regard to your job switch, with regard to any new experiments you're thinking about taking up in your career. We'll take them up very soon, so do share them with us. um, Now, going back to what I was just going to share as a new topic, I think what we have really not seen being addressed out there is the impact on the people who are not laid off. Okay, and it's an interesting thing to think about, because let's say I'm working at a company and they did a mass layoff, right? Now there are certain companies out there which are doing it just as a, cost cutting exercise, not necessarily to survive but to just become more profitable, as Ullas you mentioned earlier, right? So for example, if Meta or Amazon are, you know uh, getting leaner by 5% every year, people know that it's, the organizations are solid, the brand is solid, they are sitting on, record level of profit, so there's no risk there. But majority of organizations in India, at least, are not in that space where they can be deemed like a large profitable tech startup. So when, I've spoken to so many people, and our team has as well, I'm sure maybe you both as well, when you are at a company which is going through a rough patch and they start to resort to layoffs frequently, and we are seeing this time and time again, especially in the Indian startup ecosystem, the other employees that stay back, they start to fear what's going to happen to them and to the company, and should they stay or jump ships. And that mindset is having, or it's putting in even further pressure on the job market, because those people who are stable or secure in their career are also now being pushed to think about a switch, right? And that is just driving record number of job applicants in the market. So do you think, if I am, at a company which is laying off, should I think about also switching? Should I stay back? Like, what's the best way for me to make a career decision that is in my best interest?
Um,
Ullas, take a
again,
stab.
again, a very, very tough question, Arjun. I like you put the real elephant in the room, you bring them out, right? This has happened multiple times, especially in the organizations that I've been. And I think if you see it in a more positive way, right, as an employee, if you are the ones that is in the retained organization, so as to say, it's a great opportunity for you to now reassess your own career anchors, right? Because you've just seen how things can go south any day, right? And while, of course, the management does focus on the people who stay back, either offer them ESOPs or some kind of an assurance that this is not something that's going to be a regular feature, but that's not a guarantee in any way. So I think that's a great moment of reflection. And a lot of tenured people also, right, who've been very, very good in their work and performance, I've seen reassessing their career anchors. And it comes down to, again, can I look for what I really want to do at this point? Do I want to, if I want to grow in the same stage as I am? I think that's why people look for, if I were to use a Shine's career anchors model, right? There are 8 big career anchors. Now, is security one of my big career anchors? Does it fall in my top 3? If it does, then you know that this is probably not the organization for you in the long term, because the nature of their existence and operating is such. As opposed to if you are a big, big problem solver as a career anchor and you are willing to take risk. Again, multiple come in the case as well. Among the is, you see there's also a reward staying here, food hanging, but you love solving the problem challenges here. Then you are more okay with, okay, for now I'm fine here. I still need to build my skills, etc. But I'm not clear in terms of, as clear as someone who knows that job security is a big career anchor, wants to move away from it. So I think that becomes a good inflection point to reassess my priorities. That why place. Give you my own example actually here, when our teams were doing people development as a function, and of course we were under stress to not have that function continue, and that's where I think I made a career choice that this is not what I'm going to go with, because for me, a service or a cause is one big career anchor. So I have to look for places where I can do this kind of work that I'm doing, and it will not be possible here in long term. And I planned my switch. So I think that becomes a very, very important juncture for you to reassess priorities. and then plan, right? Of course, that planning will then include where do you want to be, what those skills or what those competencies that you will need to acquire to get there, and then how do you build
Mhm.
hard competencies and then network.
Got it. Ullas, that was very helpful. I think the structure and framework you put around like the prioritization and then planning accordingly, I think makes a lot of sense. Just small feedback, Ullas, we're facing some issues at your end. I think can't hear you in places. It might be on network or something. So if you could just maybe look into that while I get Richa on the frame here. So Richa, I think similar question to you. How should employees in general, whether they are being laid off or not, think about the uncertainty in the market and reassess their career decisions, whether to stay, whether to um, change not just job, but maybe sometimes even stream. For example, I mean, we deal with a lot of career pivots, not just job switches, right? And many times, I'm sure you've spoken to people through Pivot or other platforms where they are saying, I've done X for 5, 10 years, but now I'm thinking about doing Y for the next couple of years at least, right? And partial reason for that is maybe they like something about the new career option that they're not getting in the current one. But part of the reason also is, just the future prospects. They're thinking that for example, content writing, a lot of people are unsure how that's going to unfold in the next couple of years. I mean, it's already starting to be automated at a lot of companies. And same thing with like, many other things like coders and product managers are also thinking very, very deeply about upgrading their skill set. So apart from upgrading skill set, how do I make a career decision about staying in my current role or in my current company versus moving on?
I think a lot of it depends on your personal goals and where you are at in your career, where do you stand in your career. If you think you're at a point where you can take some sort of risk and you have a proper direction to it, be it with people like you who assist them, be it with some sort of mentorship that they have, or maybe if they have crafted a plan of their own and they're very clear about it, they can plan their exit accordingly, given that they have that future security with them in terms of a alternate job or maybe some sort of uh, part-time thing that they can probably pursue, or maybe something else that they wanted to pursue. Sometimes people just want a break for traveling or just to brainstorm or whatever. So that is one thing. Where you stand in your career is extremely important. Are you really happy with your job in the company? Is another factor. See, when if you consider just about the layoffs thing, and you're the one who's left, and you're the one who's probably saved by the management and all. Once all of that happens, a lot of dynamics change within the organization, within the department too, and then I think sometimes it gets toxic. So work environment again is one of the factors where you have to assess again whether you are someone who's okay with the work environment, who's okay with the toxic or non-toxic nature of it and whatsoever. And if you're okay with it, and if you feel you can survive this and you can do this very happily, you should go for it. You should stay there. But if you feel that this is something that doesn't work for you, you should. I mean, I'm not saying that leave the job at a small inconvenience at your workplace. But then, if you feel that this is something that you cannot bear up, it
Mhm.
is time to plan an exit or a switch, howsoever you put it. Having said that, also have a look at the job market, the job trends, be it in content, be it in HRs, be it in tech, howsoever. A lot of things are being automated. A lot of, and you will see this trend that if your company, if for example, I worked in edtechs, and I think a year ago when a certain edtech started removing people, a lot of competitors also started doing that. Somehow it was a domino effect, and people just started doing that. So don't know that is this particular function safe enough, is this particular industry safe enough? Do you have to switch from your role itself, or do you have to switch from the industry itself? Do you have to look for something better? It's just not upgradation skills, but also have to make an entire pivot in your career. um, See the job, basically reassess the job market and trends which are whatever is going on. See your own growth in this company. If you feel that this company is still serving the purpose of how you wanted to see yourself in this company, if you want to stay, there was stability. For example, I remember I stayed in a company for 4.5 years, and I was a few months far from my gratuity, but then there were priorities. I could have stayed, I could have, left. I made a choice at that point. Then there are factors about whether the work environment is favorable to you or not. And then if all of this is giving you an indication that, dude, this is the direction you should take, probably take it up. But again, take it up with a proper plan in your head,
Mhm.
just not like that.
Got it. Yeah, no, I think very comprehensively covered there, Richa. I do think, in our sort of parlance or terminology, we sometimes call these factors as push and pull factors, right? So, in case there are specific things within your organization that you believe are fundamentally misaligned with regard to where you want to take your career, that's a push factor, right? Like, for example, very high workload, a lot of stress, mismanagement from leadership, um, or perhaps just the nature of work that you really don't enjoy. So these are all push factors, and then there are a lot of pull factors with regard to maybe something better for you out there which you have not tried, or which you have tried and liked it better, so you want to pursue a full-time career now. So I think makes a lot of sense to assess yourself on these push and pull factors and then move your career direction accordingly. We have a question here. We have a couple of questions, but one that I can just take up now and then show it to all of the folks here. It's from Shiva Prasad, which is about labor laws. And I don't know if any of us here on the panel might have the legal understanding around what the laws dictate. But feel free, Hullas or Richa, if you know about like how the government should actually intervene in such situations. Do you believe the government has a role to play? Should do anything? Are they actually doing anything in this regard?
I'm very happy to jump in, and I hope I'm audible now. There's some
Yes, we can hear you.
fixes I made. So, coming on to the legal side of it, largely labor laws in India protect the blue collar workforce, right? They define that as workers, and all the IT or white collar professionals are called um, employees or the other categories, right? So there are no direct laws that prevent any kind of layoffs. Of course, there are certain guidances that you have to give notice, etc., for people to go. But largely, any retrenchment is legally governed under the Factories Act. So, do we have that for knowledge workforce of today? Short answer is really no. The more proactive side of it is the government doing anything about it. I think this has been raised a couple of times in both houses of parliament. Given the competitive nature of the workforce in India, right, I don't think anytime soon the government is going to yield in to bring in some regulatory changes there. But what we have seen in different panels that come across is how can we provide some guidelines to the organizations, right? For example, there is no structured guidance on severance pay or the kind of notices, etc., that you would want to give, or the first right of rehiring in case people are let go. I think those are the initiatives that are considered, but unlike Europe, which is highly less competitive as compared to India, there are not going to be some solid uh, labor laws covering knowledge workforce that will come into picture. Is at least what my view is. But at the same time, there are think tanks that are working on regulating this a little bit more. Richa, Arjun, your 2 cents.
I mean, I think I've read this somewhere that a lot there are certain organizations within the government, there's certain bodies within the government who are probably working towards this. But then I think as individuals, we also have to understand that we cannot really fully enforce this. I mean, because if they do that, I think people are going to ask about unemployment stats from the government portfolio, and they would ask for more seats and SSCs and whatnot. So they will not probably interfere in this directly. And even if they do, Arjun, let's be extremely honest. I have been on that side. The companies will still do it, and but name it something else. They'll put on your performance. We still know it, but I think there are labor laws in place for severance. There are labor laws in place for notice. If the company is asking you to leave, you are entitled for a severance pay. You must you must be a certain notice period. There is probation period in there. If you're in probation, if you're not in probation, there's hiring and rehiring practices. Everything is in place. So you have to be aware of all of this. If you know that in your company something like this is happening, probably start reading about that. Start reading about your rights. And honestly, Mediti, who was asked this question, so Pawan, when this happens, no, I think as the person who's in this situation, the government is the last thing you'll think about. You will think about your other options. You will think about your own rights at this point, and you will think about how you can stretch the this uh, income stream of yours, or maybe monthly salary of yours, for the longest time, so that you can plan out something else. The government hopefully would do something, but then most probably, knowing the government in general, let's be honest, they will not, because they will ask, yeah, okay, take it, you give us employment, you do something better, you give us better funding as the startup owners and whatnot, you give us investments, and they will probably not touch something, not they won't touch anything when it comes to the entrepreneurs. It's all celebrated. So know your own rights, know how you can do things better for yourself individually, and I think that would be the best bet.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think there are some laws, and I think Ullas, you're right, they're more protective of the blue collar workforce because they're slightly more archaic in nature. Um, that being said, I think there are also certain best practices and accepted policies out there with regard to notice period, and I think severance is typically a little more restricted towards the executives and senior leadership teams. But yeah, I think people should definitely make themselves more aware. I agree, Richa, fully that today most people don't know because perhaps there weren't that many situations like this. But in today's market, where almost anybody is susceptible to a risk like this, it's important that you do a little more study and make sure you understand what you are owed by the employer or by companies. Um, let's move on. I think Richa, you kind of touched upon this in the last answer you gave, so it's a good segue, which is about financial planning, right? So a lot of times when people are going through something like this, one of the biggest stresses for most of the lead off employees is how they're going to manage things financially if this stretches for more than what they can afford. Um, there are people in the market who have not been able to land jobs for 6 months, for 9 months, for 12 months, sometimes over that period. I spoke to one gentleman based out of US, and like I said, this is a global trend. It's not just restricted to India. This person had a PhD from John Hopkins, one of the best universities in medical for across the board. And he had a PhD from John Hopkins, had prior experience before PhD, had been applying to jobs for over a year, over 1,000 jobs. Nothing worked out, right? That's when he came to us and we started working. But there are situations like this where you are very well qualified, but you're still not getting anything in the market, and that can be very financially debilitating. So what can people do in such scenarios? How do they make sure that they can spend some time trying to identify the new opportunity and are putting the best foot forward there, while also not really stressing out about their finances? Ulas, we'll start with you.
Um, Great question again, Arjun, because this has always been, irrespective whether you are at an organization where you have job security or not. I think even when we talk about financial well-being in our organizations, right, which are fairly stable that way, we always advise people to make that runway for 6 months to 1 year, right, from their financial stream, and large part of it is via investments, right? And I think, irrespective of the level at which you are, it is very essential to plan that out for next year or so, um, like you would plan for any of your projects, right? I mean, think of your life as your own little startup. How much runway would you want to keep given your situation. And sometimes, very, very senior people who are well paid also struggle with this, because if they go out, they are so higher at a compensation level, let's say a P90 or at a 90th
Absolutely.
percentile, that the market is unable to absorb them. I think that becomes even more critical if they have not
Yeah, and the
planned.
other factor there, sorry to
Well,
interject, Ullas, is that usually these folks have more, I would say lavish lifestyles because they were living on a higher income. They have more dependents. They usually have families
yeah,
to support. So it's actually a double-edged sword because there are fewer opportunities out there for them. Plus, their expenses are higher compared to a person who's in their 20s or early 30s. So yeah, I mean, how actually for this people, it's even a more inflated problem. So how do you navigate this?
you're bang on. I think the responsibility, of course, is on individual, but do ensure that you have enough support mechanisms. Either you have your own personal finance management or a manager, right, which helps you does that. A lot of organizations offer this. For example, at Godrej, we offer financial well-being. We have our partners, right, that you can get in touch with, plan your 1 year of solid income and investment, right? So I think in this date and age, it's very important that you reach out if you are not an expert at it, which a lot of us are not, right? Um, Learn about how investments can help you. That's one. Second, I think the age-old wisdom, which probably our parents told, right? What part of your income do you save versus spend, and when you save, how much of it is goes into investments? To have that sort of an annual operating plan for yourself. We do AOP in every organization. Do it for yourself. Figure out which parts you can go invest, and figure out which parts you can't. Especially given that in India, there's no solid, large level social security, right? Personally, it's your responsibility to secure yourself. While there are, of course, schemes, etc., that come through. So I always encourage people to make 6 months to 1 year of segue, plan your stints, your work, your financial well-being in such a way that you have that, and you create your own annual operating plan. I think just touching upon an example, a lot of people are not very disciplined even with the taxes, right? They can save actually 10 to 15% more. We did a study in our organization and we found out that people are easily giving away 10 to 15% just because of poor tax planning. So if you can plan that well with old, new regimes and the possibilities that you can take, you can definitely go on that path. And I think, like any other thing, it's a habit, right? Once you start delving into it, you realize that there's a lot more that can help you.
Got it. And so I think you focused a little more on kind of financial planning, which is not very normalized today, and I think it should be, especially in these times. And I think that can help you have a longer runway. Richa, can you touch more upon like the other side of this equation, which is apart from cost optimization of my expenses, what can I do to get more income streams going for me? I know we touched upon this slightly earlier, with regard to doing part-time projects and stuff like that. Do you have any thoughts about additional income streams, especially in the interim period when you are navigating an uncertain market while you're laid off?
I think again it boils down to the same fact of upskilling. So I think this is third time talking about upskilling, but you have to. This is the job market. I think I am someone who want to upskill at this point in my career.
So, Richa, but how would that help with additional income stream?
See, Arjun, if you're just a writer, for example, in content, if you're just an HR who knows hiring, but do not know the operation side of HR, or do not know the management side of content, or let's say the editing side of content, you'll be stuck. You'll be stuck and you'll probably be replaced very easily. When you know your core job is just one, it's very easy to it's one very competitive, so there are high volume of people doing the same thing. So how do you differentiate yourself? What is your USP really as a candidate or as an individual that you have to offer to any client or any organization really? So one, genuinely do that. And second, on the cost of really encouraging people on moonlighting and whatnot, Generally, look out. One, work on your network. Keep in a good word. Keep in a good word to people that I think I'm a writer, I'm an HR, I'm doing this for freelance or something. If you seek any opportunity, if you know of something that I can help with, do that. You never know how. Just the fact that you are just asking people or just putting in a good word for someone else can take you somewhere else. Can help you with that income stream. Like Hullas genuinely rightly pointed. Taxes, finances. These are some things that a lot of people are not aware of. And just not, and the people, this is very interesting that people who have, let's say, just 2 years of experience, 0 to 2 years, and then people who have probably 15 plus years of experience, they are the ones who are on rightly on the edge to be laid off because one, if you're just within 2 years of experience, you're replaceable. You're very replaceable. Very easy to replace, uh, at least from the company's point of view. And if you hold 15 years experience, most probably you are compensated so highly that they feel that why to replace the ones who has 2 years? Why not? So all of that. So either ways, if you one make yourself aware of like Hula said about certain things and certain points to have that kind of financial cushioning for yourself so that you can stretch your expenses, your lifestyle, and a bit of whatever responsibilities you hold. That's great. And second, generally look out for other things, just not full-time opportunities, but see what is it in you that you can probably make money out of. As I stated earlier, initially you can start it for free. You can start doing these services for free and experiment with everything. And once you create a portfolio of your own, once you have that, I think you can, if your skills are good enough, they can make money for you. They totally can. You make good coffee at home, try experiment with this, and then one day just start charging for it. People, if they like your coffee, they are going to pay for it. Start with $10 and then probably take it to 100. Once you know that these are the consumers and you just need a couple of clients for yourself, you can just start it from there. One upskilling, one financial cushioning, one you know probably giving some wings to your passion, which you feel can make money eventually. Genuinely can work in wonders in next couple of years. Can totally do that.
Mhm.
I feel not. Sometimes it's an option to entirely pivot to another department or function too, but obviously that takes time. But you feel that you are passionate enough for your own job stream because I know a lot of people are, and I also know a lot of people are not. They're doing this for the sake of it and all. If you feel that you are, probably see what is something else that I can put on the table that that will differentiate me from others. Do that,
Mm,
and if you feel that
sure.
there's something an entire pivot, do that as well, uh, with probably external help and assistance.
Got it.
Love, love the thought,
Thanks.
Richa. I mean, you really put the right thing that if you are good at making coffee, give it some try, right? Maybe monetize it. It's no harm in doing that. We've seen a lot of people come up to that curve, right? I know a couple of friends who help 0 to 3 years people file taxes, right, and save their money, and they're very happy to then pay a certain fee to get it done, right? So love the thought, Richa. Must compliment you on that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a little more, um, how should I say, uncommon to see that kind of, suggestion, but especially like if you're dealing with uncertainty. But I think it's true. Sometimes, as they say, necessity is the best mother of invention, right? Um, I mean, that's what they talked about when DeepSeek came out recently. But I think sometimes when you're running out of ideas, going back to what you really find, passion in and truly enjoy and kind of, build something in that area, it can really lead to unexpected rewards and outcomes. And yeah, I think I completely agree. One more thing that, a couple of other options that I just want to quickly touch upon in case, either of you have seen or maybe people in the audience might like to hear those potential options. One is just investing, right? So, I mean, India still has only less than 2% retail investors, right? And that's something that's changing very rapidly because of democratization of these trading platforms and, all the, knowledge that's being disseminated within the space. And obviously it's a double edged sword as well. You can, lose a lot of money and you can make a lot of money as well. So obviously do it knowing all the risks that are part of this. um, But the other thing also, and Richa, I don't know if this is something you saw in one of your prior jobs at the ed tech firm you used to be affiliated with, but there are more and more content creators out there who are creating courses and these, like, let's say, anything that they are skilled in, anything that they have knowledge in, creating some sort of a digital product around that, and selling it just as a just to create additional income, not necessarily as the full-time job, right? So I don't know, to be very honest, what the success rate in that is. I know it's a relatively new concept, just like influencers are a relatively new concept, but it's something that we have seen a lot of people starting to do, especially if they don't want to become like a camera facing influencer or something. They build certain courses in a very methodical manner using certain edtech platforms, and then the more people who buy it, the more they're able to make money. So I think there are a couple of these new age options as well, which people are exploring. So yeah, just wanted to share those as well. And anything else that you want to mention here? I know you both have covered things comprehensively, but any final thoughts on this particular topic?
I fully
No?
agree
Okay.
with you. I think a couple of good followers, good finfluencers, if you would call them, you follow on LinkedIn, etc. Right, Akshat, for example, or Aviril Agarwal. A lot of these folks have done similar journeys, right? They have built platforms, for example, for VC funding, which are simple, intuitive. You get um, you get feedback on your business model within 7 days, right? With respect to how much it is possible to get a funding into it. Now, those kind of things are really revolutionizing the business, right? Especially where the black boxes existed, where you never got feedback. So I echo the thought that if you can build an asset which can solve a problem, then you are at a very good track to monetize it or even scale it up then and make a full-fledged business out for yourself.
Yeah.
I
Richa,
think
anything else?
I think, yeah. I mean, whatever both of you I just stated makes a lot of sense, and a lot of people are doing that. Be it the content creators, these influencers, and I think LinkedIn and Instagram are the platforms for it. But having said that, as individuals who are listening to it, please do this if only you know the way out of this. If you know how exactly to do this, if you have a proper direction to this. Otherwise, don't. It takes a lot of community management. It takes a lot of very continued social media presence and a lot of good engagements. When someone starts off on that path, generally they take the hints from the engagement that they're getting on the social media posts. They understand if they can actually build a potential community out of it, if they actually see a problem statement out there that can be solved, and then probably they create, let's say, as very simple assets such as an ebook or something as a lead magnet, and eventually move on to other things. But do know that a lot of, like, there are amazing influencers and creators out there who are also making money. Good for them, they should, but are also serving the community in one way or the other. But at the same time, there are a lot of creators I know of who, let's say, who probably are not really polishing their core skills themselves. I was reading about the stock trader course. That's certain. I don't remember the name really. I was reading about this morning. This man made 12 lakhs out of to stock trade or something. The core thing that he had in this year, in this financial year. But he made like a certain some crores out of the course he said.
Hmm.
So please know your way out of this. Not everything that you see is right, and if you want to, jump into this bandwagon, no ins and outs out of this. You have to be very smart. You have to have that wits out there, and you need to have a team. These are not individuals working. These are just creators for the sake of it. They have teams working for it. So know your options. Explore everything. Why not? You can be faceless. You don't have to make create personal branding out of this. But please know, if you have those resources, if you have that kind of time, and if this is something that suits your skills, why not?
Well said. Well said. Okay, I think we have short over our time here a little bit, and I think we have discussed a lot of things today. So thank you, to both of you, for joining on Saturday morning. I know that you're probably wanting to get back to your weekend and do things which are more personal and meaningful to you. But really, really appreciate your time, and I hope people who joined us were able to get some insights here. I do want to just share that we discussed a lot around job market and layoffs. One thing which we deliberately didn't cover, because we've been talking about it a whole lot in other workshops, is what strategies you can use to actually land a job in the current market, right? We deliberately kept off that in this one. Again, if you see some of our other sessions that are hosted on our platform or on YouTube, you'll find more than sufficient content around this. So feel free to check that out as well. And in case you have any questions around your specific career journey, or any layoff that you might be experiencing, please reach out to Pivot. Please reach out to Richa and Hullas, who are both industry mentors with us. They are able to help you in a one-on-one manner by providing personalized support and guidance. And I do want to say, a lot of people struggle solo in these difficult situations, and it's not very very comfortable to go through something so hard and stressful on your own. So whether it's through our platform or something else, try to get some support. It will make your journey 100 times easier. All right, yeah, with that we can wrap it up. And thank you once again for everybody to join on Saturday morning. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a great rest of the weekend. Thanks,
Big
Ullas.
thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Arjun. Big thanks to you and Pivot and Richa. Lovely conversation. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Have a great weekend,